at the Driefontein mine. Now, in other business news, as KPMG battles for survival in South Africa, it's lost yet another client. Redefine Properties has joined a growing list of companies and institutions cutting ties with the auditing firm KPMG. Despite this, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants says its members are still highly sought after internationally. So talking about the reputation among those auditing professionals right now. Our reporter Diabo Setu spoke to the acting CEO of that institute, SAICA, Fanisa Lamola. She began by acknowledging that the chartered accountants implicated have impacted on the reputation of the association itself.
It is our members that work for all these firms that are alleged to have done whatever they're being alleged to have done. And yes, it worries us as a member organization that our members find themselves in such situations. And as a professional body that has got a code that we expect our members to adhere to, it is of concern to us when there are allegations that their behavior is not talking to what the code expects of them.
It's probably even more of a concern when you see the implications of their behavior. Just this week, Absa decided not to renew its contract with KPMG. It brought back the memories, even though people were almost trying to forget what's been happening in the industry. But that development was a reminder. I remember that earlier this month you spoke about how you have revoked about 9 licenses. Are there more that are going to be revoked? Is that number still standing? What is the status quo?
You are right, as I indicated earlier on in the month. It's a process for us to get to a point where we revoke licenses or we suspend licenses or we fine our members. And to get to that point, we basically need to get to the bottom of any actions that people that might have done that is not in terms with the code. So right now, I can't say to you there will be more until that process has unfolded. And at the end of the process unfolding, should members be found to not have complied with our code, there will be a sanction that will be awarded to them. It might be a revocation, or it might be a suspension, or it might be the fine, depending on the nature of the offense. So I can't say to you there will be more, because we need to let that process unfold. And I know, unfortunately, processes take long, especially legal processes. And for us to be able to do it thorough, we need to give it time, we need to investigate, so that when we award that sanction, it can be motivated. You are not found wanting in terms of just revoking licenses, and you end up with more liability because you haven't done a thorough investigation process. So, yeah, basically what I'm saying is, depending on the outcome of the process, there might be sanctions that may be of different forms.
Speaking of processes and outcomes, the SABC inquiry, do you have information about how that is coming along, what's been happening there?
Yes, we do have information, because it was a process that we initiated independently as it is running. But part of the expectation is we need to know what is happening. And as you may know, it started like in November, and part of the terms of reference of the Commission requires of them to have hearings. So for the bulk of the time since November, they have been undergoing those hearings. Before hearings, actually, there were submissions. It was anyone who has got any matter about a member of SAICA, and I must clarify, the inquiry is about members of SAICA, not KPMG. Those members of SAICA might have happened to work for KPMG, but we are not investigating KPMG, but the conduct of our members who work at KPMG. So there was a period, like the initial phase, was to actually get submissions about our members who work for KPMG that might have done something that is not in terms of our code. After the submissions, then the hearings began, where it was open public hearings. So any member of the public who's got information could go there and be placed on record and give information about what they know or they allege our members to have done. So that is what has been unfolding for the past, I would say for the past 6 months. It has been the submissions, it could be written, or you could come and sit and explain your situation, and then it was the hearings. And obviously, the process also has to give opportunity to those members that are alleged to have done something to respond. And then once we have got all that information, then there will be a conclusion. And as we indicated right at the initiation of that inquiry, we said whatever is discovered or concluded from that inquiry, we will use that as input into our disciplinary process.
Let's talk about Nkonki Incorporated. The after effects of what happened there are much more dire than what is happening at KPMG. I mean, filing for liquidation and all of that, having jobs being on the line and all that. Do you have any of your members who are part of Nkonki Incorporated?
Yes, part of the people impacted at Nkonki are our members or our members to be. And yeah, but in terms of our members to be, which are the articles clerk, we have been engaging with Nkonki to see how we can still make the dreams of those trainees come true in terms of helping place them at other companies or assess whether they have completed the requirements that they need to meet for them to be able to be accredited. And I must say, we are making good progress on that.
The industry as a whole, right? I remember in around June, there was an article that talked about how there are more Indian and white chartered accountants more than there are black ones. Is that the situation you see on the ground as an association?
Yes, it is. And let me give context to that. When you look, remember the CA profession is a profession that has been around for many, many years. So when you look at prior 1994, the bulk of our membership were obviously white because it was one of those professions that was not popularly known. Our education system did not necessarily produce the kind of quality that would enable more black people to be able to meet the requirements to study as a CA. So prior to 1994, the bulk would have been white. But ever since we started with our transformation initiatives and opportunities were opened up for everyone, I must tell you, in terms of the kids that recently qualified, we have got more blacks, females actually, qualifying than even men. I was looking at the stats about a week back, and I was so proud to be a black woman because the results that came out, we have got more black females than men.
Let's talk about how we fare compliance-wise in Africa and internationally. Given the scandals that we've seen, how would you say compliance-wise South African chartered accountants and auditors fare compared to the other African countries, the rest of Africa, and also internationally?
I actually just came back from another meeting, and if I have to tell you, we are doing very well in terms of compliance, and CASAs are in demand internationally. Someone was actually telling us in the management meeting that, is it Ireland or Scotland, one of the two, almost 60% of the CAs that are working there are CASAs. So we are highly regarded out there, and if you may also know, for a long time, we have been #1 internationally in terms of our auditing standards. So this thing that is happening now does not in any way reflect that we have been very complacent or we are down in terms of compliance. Yes, I acknowledge, and don't get me wrong, I acknowledge those few bad incidences have put a black dot or a dot on our profession, but it is not in any way a reflection of where a CASA is.
All right, so looking at the state of the auditing profession and chartered accountants as well there. Let's